So if you're continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again, you are fine in that arena. You're not going to be fine forever, and the rug's going to get ripped out. If you're open and you're nimble and you're paying attention and you're open to a shift, you're going to be fine. I have no idea what that shift is going to be, but it's coming.
Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing Movers. Today we have Kristen Harrison, the Director of Business Development at WebStrategies. They're a digital marketing agency based out of Virginia that was founded 20 years ago, back in 2004. And Kristen has been with the company for 10 years now, with 7 of those years leading business development for the agency. So we're really excited to learn from her, hear from her experience today. We're happy to have you on the show, Kristen. Thanks for joining.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. I love doing this kind of thing and sharing. I believe that everyone learns through sharing and telling of stories and listening to other people's stories. And you might catch like a glimmer of something that might have an impact or drive. So I love sharing my experience in an effort to kind of help someone else maybe navigate through their own set of challenges or whatever. But I love the idea of sharing stories in an effort to help others.
That's awesome. And I think that's a good segue here, because where I'd love to start our conversation off today is actually with your story. You've got a really cool background. If I'm understanding correctly, you did some work in real estate. You've had your own direct marketing business. You did some work in home care, and now you're in digital marketing. Can you tell us your story and how you ended up now leading business development at WebStrategies?
How much time do we have? My story is long and the road is twisty. I guess going back to the beginning of my career was spent in real estate, all different aspects and facets of real estate, from commercial real estate to the appraiser side to traditional real estate. And I loved real estate. I really did. I loved the financial aspect of it. I loved the doing of it. I loved everything about real estate. And so that part of my career ended when I have a son, and then 18 months after he came, I brought home triplet girls. And so 4 kids in cribs, 4 kids in diapers. Needless to say, wow. I didn't work for a chunk of time. I stayed at home with them until my girls went to kindergarten. And so when they went to kindergarten, I opened up a business with one of my high school childhood, because we were friends in middle school too, but childhood best friends. She and I opened up this business. And so that, blood, sweat, and tears, it was about 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and, a lot of great things and a lot of really hard things, and all lessons to be carried elsewhere. So that business closed down. And then I went and took a very temporary job with the competition. It was a direct sales business, and I wanted to give the opportunity to have the reps like another home to go to. So I took a temporary job with the competition, and all the while I was looking for a job. And I met and applied for the job that I have now. And I did not get it because I didn't have digital marketing experience. No harm, no foul. I don't have digital marketing experience. So I took this job selling, but doing inside sales for a medical device. And it was challenging, not my favorite. It was a very difficult, tough move. So me being me, and just a national networker, when I interviewed for this job, and I had a great relationship with Neil, who's our founder. And I did not have a very great relationship with my boss at the medical device sales job. So I called Neil, because I'm just a natural networker, and I called him and asked him if he had some advice, some help, some tips for me to navigate through these choppy waters. He called me back. I called him back. We played a couple rounds of phone tag, and then I ran into him at a Panera with my whole family on Mother's Day. So just imagine myself, my own mother, my 4 kids, and my soon-to-be wife at the time, going into a Panera We don't just walk into a place and casually go up and order. I mean, we come in, it's like loud and obnoxious and just loud. So, and Neil was sitting there, he was working. Gave his wife a gift card to a spa across the street. And so while she was at the spa, he went to the Panera to work. And so I walked in, he looked at me, I looked at him, and he said, "My God, when you walk into a room, the place lights up, and I made a mistake. Let's start talking again." So we started talking again. I still had no digital marketing experience, but they took a chance on me and I got the job. And boy, I knew nothing, nothing, less than nothing. I had no idea what I was doing. I got the job solely based on my God-given personality and my grit, which if I didn't have the grit, we all know that I wouldn't have made it till today. So here I am, just pretty much based on personality and grit. And my kids are old now and they're in college and I'm an empty nester and it's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Your sales experience, like when I'm listening to your background, it's like real estate, selling your own business, medical devices, and now agency. I'm curious, what was different between, all of those different styles of selling?
That's actually, of all the questions I've ever had, that's a great question. I think the earlier they came very naturally to me. They were people oriented. I could create a relationship with my eyes closed. That was the easy part. And so I really I didn't have much of a learning curve. So I didn't have to learn new strategies and new ways of doing things because the things that made you really good and successful at those jobs came to me so naturally. Then this job was so hard. It was so hard. I had no idea what digital marketing was. I probably didn't have a whole great grasp on marketing in general. Didn't really realize that it was the own vernacular and it was made up of acronyms and it was like your own language. And I honestly, the term "fake it till you make it." Sometimes I still feel like I'm doing that after a decade. So I had my computer open. We would go into these meetings and I had my computer open and just typing away. And I think that I gave off the perception that I was looking really busy and studious and like super eager and all of those things. The reality is I had my computer open to Google. I Googled half of the things that people were saying because I had no clue what anyone was talking about. And, that just kind of goes back to my grit. I would never let anything beat me, but it just did not come easily to me. The relationship part obviously is very easy, but it did not come easily to me. So I had to learn a whole different way of doing things, of operating, leading with questions, being more of a challenger instead of a relationship builder. Because it became so easily to me, I didn't have to study the relationship part. So I had to kind of figure out how I could really be a good salesperson selling this really complicated topic like digital marketing and SEO and, client driven tactics and like just all of these things. And I had to figure out a way to do that and build the relationship at the same time. So bridging that gap was extremely challenging for me. And so this has made me a lot smarter, a lot tougher, I have thick skin. I work with some of the most intelligent people I've ever come across in my entire life. And I think the real win is that not only have I succeeded in some years, in some cases I've overachieved, but I think the biggest win for me is that I just never think that I've gotten there. I never think that I've won. There's always something to learn. There's always a new strategy. There's always a new tactic coming out. There's always, look at AI. Look at what AI is doing. It's like flipping everyone on their head. And oh my gosh, everything is going to change in the next 3 years. I mean, everything. So, and what does that mean for all of us? And how are we going to continue to survive and not only survive, but thrive in this new landscape? And So all of these questions, it being pushed almost to the brink, in learning and forcing myself to do things differently and work smarter and harder and all of those things, really is still there. It still is like kind of the driving force. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I kind of feel like I went on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, so in your role, I'm totally guessing here, but I imagine you are responsible for driving growth from like lead to close. You are like bringing in the demand. You're doing some type of consultative sale, trying to figure out what the problem is, figure out a solution and a plan, and then you're bringing the client on. Did you start out in that role, or
Mm-hmm.
did you have to?
So no, I started out in the role. I started out as just sales. Like I think my title was sales manager, and I was the first salesperson that was hired outside of our founder. So our founder is Neil Lappy, and he what did all of the business development prior to me. And so he hired me and kind of shepherded me for a couple of years. And then he just kind of turned me loose, like, do with it what you will. And so I work with him and Chris and our director of digital marketing at the time. He's not still here anymore, but and so back in those early days, we all really worked together to figure out the best way to generate leads and sales and figure out what our next move was and how we were going to do them. And, back then we created like a cold calling machine.
Mm.
Appointments were set. I took the first meeting was discovery, and then the second meeting is more of like a findings. Here's where you are. Here's where you want to go type of research meeting. And then the third meeting is, kind of close. So that structure, although it's changed and gone through some different iterations, remains basically the same today. But we don't do cold calling anymore. So we focus on inbound and referrals and just past clients or other people that had gone through the funnel that didn't close for whatever reason, try and re-engage them. So those kinds of tactics are working for us today.
Got it. And what inbound tactics do you guys use?
Just a lot of good content, tons of good content, articles. We do webinars. We have a LinkedIn campaign. So those are some of the inbound strategies that work too. Trying to provide the information that people are looking for based on their industry in driving leads and sales in the marketplace. So just pump out all of that information and people respond to it. And then I can see who's coming to the site. I can see who's reading emails. I can kind of gauge our new visitors or prospects that have been in the funnel for a long time. And then I just hit them, accordingly.
So you do some outbound afterwards later on if they've already engaged with some content. Mm-hmm. Got it. And once they actually book a call with you, in that discovery portion, how do you guys think about trying to identify if someone's a good fit, what the problem is?
Oh, well, that's also a great question too. So it's just really sales discovery. You ask a lot of questions. What are they trying to do? Who are they trying to go after? What have they done before? What works? What doesn't work? And the more that I find for me, the more that they talk and they tell me about their story, what they have done, what they want to do, how many leads they generate today, how many leads do they want, what's their cost per acquisition, all of those questions, the more that they start to answer them and the more they start to tell me their challenges and where they're winning and where they might be losing, the more I kind of guide them in my mind of where I feel like they should go or what makes sense to them. And so I can, I can just kind of chart their course, and then our conversation leads down the path of, well, it sounds like advertising would be a good fit for you. We might need to look at content and some SEO and, then I can kind of, in the second meeting, I can show them some of the things that we do in comparison to some of the things that they're doing today, and it paints a story of true benefit for them. The way your analytics is organized today isn't as beneficial. If you did it this way, you'd see more conversion driving tactics. You'd be more focused on data than throwing spaghetti at the wall. We need to get away from vanity metrics. The world is so data driven today. Vanity metrics aren't doing a whole lot for us unless you're running a strict brand awareness campaign, and that's done with in completely different mediums. So you just really listen. And I was told very early on in my career, you listen to understand, not to respond. So the more you listen, that's the Covey 7 business examples. But the more you listen, the more you understand them, and the more you understand how you can help them.
And do you guys have a specific vertical or customer avatar that you work with?
We do. So we are vertical specific, which was really another huge game changer for us to go, really deep into a vertical. We have two. We have credit unions and B2B manufacturing. And I am in charge of the credit union vertical.
Got it. Why did you guys pick those verticals?
So the credit union vertical was chosen because we looked at all of our existing clients. It was, there was a lot to go into it, a lot of thought, a lot of data crunching, a lot of numbers. But really, ultimately, what drove us to choosing them was we could do really good work for them. And they weren't at the time, this was, a decade ago. So, and it's completely different today. But at the time, they had a very kind of simple strategy that you could repeat across the industry. Today, it's not really the same today, but at the time it definitely was. So that's one of the things that we were looking at. What are we really good at? Where do we show up best for our clients? Where do we perform great work? How do we move the needle in the most responsible way for all parties involved? And credit unions just really fit that bill, and they still fit the bill today. I know I am so attached to the credit union industry. It's personal to me. They're like my personal friends. I'm kind of like Aaron Brockovich with my credit unions. I can tell you who they are, what my first meeting was with them. I can tell you most of their kids' names, friends with them on Facebook, have them on text. So I just got really super, super, super focused in the industry, and I love them, and I love them all. And after all this time, you kind of develop a sense of togetherness and understanding, and really, like a deep connection that goes. It certainly starts with the marketing, and they certainly are clients, but it goes, kind of beyond that in some ways.
Right. It sounds like you initially weren't niche or focused on that specific vertical, but it was a conscious decision at some point that was super beneficial to the agency.
Yes, it was. It was a conscious decision to do that. I think it was a strategic initiative that was really before. I mean, I couldn't even specifically tell you what it was, but it was a strategic, or why we did it. It was a strategic initiative in an effort to serve our clients better.
Got it.
And they fit the bill. We learned a lot and I just knew it was going to work. I knew it was going to work. We started that about 2 years after I started, solely going after credit unions. And it was about 2 years after I started, and I just knew, I just had a gut feeling, and it's done very well for us. We've had success.
How did that change the marketing approach?
I think that we became more heavy and more focused on metrics and data and proving ROI, really crunching numbers. I think that we kind of pivoted towards an emphasis on data, even more so than we were before, to tell our story, show results, um, give them an understanding of this was my, because credit unions have a budget and they're beholden under a marketing budget. So within that marketing budget, they have to do a sundry of things. And so they also have to report their numbers quarterly. Some are quarterly, some are monthly. And in the reporting, it is very specific. And so we wanted to be able to help them figure out, this was my budget, this is how much I spent, this is what I got, this is how much it cost us, period. And to get them in and out of those meetings with those clear, concise numbers.
Right. It's interesting thinking about the timeline of it, because the business was founded like 20 years ago. You came in at about the halfway point, and then 2 years into your life, or not your life, 2 years into your time at the agency, you guys decided to niche down. So the business had been around for 12 years or so before that shift happened. So it's interesting to think about.
So and I don't want to sound cliche and give you the whole thing, because I was thinking about this earlier today and when, kind of planning and preparing. And while I don't want to sound cliche and say it's all about the people, and if you have great people behind you, and I do totally believe that it's really all about the people and understanding who is working with you, what they're, just being open to what people are really good at and their successes and their wins, and just really who they are. And I think that leads for a much better leadership team and a way to, kind of trickle down to all of the employees and have us all cohesively be on the same page. Regardless of how different we are and where we come from and our backgrounds, but we work together like a unit. Right. And when you have that, you're able to be more nimble and you're able to pivot, I think, quicker than you would if you were kind of all over the place and the right hand did not know what the left hand was doing. So I say that we started out, before I came along, as a web shop. So we were a dev shop and we did sites and everything. And going back to talking about the smartest people in the whole planet that work here. So Neil, I think, is the leader of the smartest people in the whole world. But and he founded it, and around 2008, Chris Leone, who is our CEO today, he came in, and he was like, well, websites are great, but how do they perform? Like, let's get into this digital marketing thing. And so now today we're like 95% digital marketing and maybe 5% dev, but we're doing dev work for our existing clients. And so we were able to like completely pivot. And so I came in well after that decision had been made, and we were doing a lot more digital marketing than we were ever doing dev work.
It's a very common kind of like pattern I've been hearing from at least the agencies that have been in the game for a little while. They were around at the early stages of the internet, and people are like, how do we like take advantage of this? It seems like a lot of folks started with the websites, and it was like a great kind of front end offer, but project based. And it's like, how do we like extend the lifetime value of the customer? And then that becomes the core of the business. So it sounds like most people who even come in inbound for you guys now as well, is it mostly for like the digital marketing work, or is it, also still websites?
Yeah, it's all digital marketing now, all digital marketing. And we do a lot of HubSpot work. We're HubSpot Diamond partners. And so we've really leaned into the HubSpot platform and how the platform is the platform that we have found to date. It's the best one to take, kind of the level of clients that we go after. Credit unions, it can hold all of credit unions' data, it can grow with you. You're not going to have to replace it. You can integrate your systems into it. So HubSpot is the best platform that we found for our clients. And so we do a lot of work with them as well. Again, another example of being kind of nimble and adding another, kind of part of our stack together.
Right. So on the note of being nimble, where do you guys feel like the industry is headed, especially with all this AI stuff going on?
Yeah. I find myself in a precarious spot to answer this question. I mean, I have no idea. Just,
Yeah.
I do have a feeling that it's all going to change, but I also have a feeling that it's really going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. I think for our other agencies, our other CEOs, or other director of marketings, or whoever might be listening to this, if you are willing to pay attention and to do something else other than you've already done, you're going to be fine. The people who aren't going to be fine are the people who don't see the writing on the walls and they're too close to the forest to see between the trees.
Hmm. What's
And
the writing on the walls?
that's what my gut says. If you're continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again, and you are fine in that arena, you're not going to be fine forever, and the rug's going to get ripped out. If you're open and you're nimble and you're paying attention to what industry experts are saying, what your clients are saying, what the market is doing, and you're open to a shift, you're going to be fine. I have no idea what that shift is going to be. I mean, I have read some instances from some really heavy hitters, like heavy marketing hitters, who are like, if you're in SEO today and you're thinking about it the same way today as you did yesterday, you're nuts and you need to go full video and blah, blah, blah. I mean, could some of that be true? Sure. Does anyone actually know? No. I mean, we don't know until we get there. We can only really speculate. What's guaranteed is that it's going to change. What that change looks like, I have no idea, but it's coming. So be ready for it.
Yeah,
And
I
and
feel like
don't pigeonhole yourself into one particular thing. Or I truly believe that marketing as we know it today is not going to be the same tomorrow.
yeah, and the LinkedIn community is always claiming that insert channel is dead or dying, and you're screwed if you're still doing it. I did see an interesting article, not article, post from Rand Fishkin today talking about SEO and how Google is prioritizing traffic to certain websites, and how like really the people who are successful are doing all this stuff outside of the SEO as well to kind of like support it. Have you guys
Yeah.
seen the same?
I think that we're really paying attention to it. And that's what I can say for sure. First of all, I don't do it and I don't do SEO and as a practice, my agency does, but I don't. And so I only really talk about it. So my opinion on this is going to be really high level. We pay a lot of attention to it. And we are looking at ways to think outside the box with this stuff. And we're studying, like with our existing clients, we're studying the differences between traffic, like where traffic is being impacted versus like particular page views. And if particular page views over product is improving, are we paying more attention to website traffic? So how can we meet people where they are in search? How can we give them what they need? We are paying attention to all of that. Are people just looking at the AI driven result? Sadly, I'm in the business and I know better, and I do, even though I know that the result's probably wrong. But I mean, I'm just so quick. Like if I Google something and that meta response comes up, I'm like, sweet. And then I just go on my day and I don't even look. I swear I just did research for a credit union yesterday. And that was the first time I scrolled through Google in forever. And I'm in the business. And
Wow.
so things like that are a really big sign of what's coming. If I'm doing it, I would consider myself and my response probably years behind, just because, I'm a 48-year-old mom. I don't I'm not the demographic that everyone's looking at in terms of how they're going to make these decisions. And even I'm using AI, and it's not just ChatGPT for an email. It's coming up everywhere now. So those are the things to me that you need to really pay attention to: your own behavior, your client's behavior, the site behavior. Is it going to be like the worst thing? It's not the worst thing. People still go to the library, and people swore after the web came up that nobody would go to the library. However, the card catalog has totally changed. So it's one of those things. Like, we don't need to know the Dewey Decimal System anymore, but people are still going to the library. And so people are still going to search, and they're still going to go to websites, but what are they not going to do? And those are kinds of the things that we wonder and we think about. And also the saturation of just platforms and videos and TikToks and Instagrams, and the world of just instant gratification. I mean,
Right.
Those worlds are all going to collide, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
So how do you think about that? That's an interesting point, especially as an agency. I'm always thinking about from the perspective of my prospects. In a lot of ways, I'm a commodity. So like, how do I, cut through that noise? How do you guys cut through that noise and differentiate yourselves?
I think again, you have to be nimble, and you have to try a bunch of new things. And so there, honestly, I think it matches my personality pretty well, because I get bored and stagnant and do something because I just can't stand doing the same thing all the time. And so when I just try something else, if it ends up working out, great. It's kind of it's taking us forward. And just really being kind of strategic in your thoughts. If you're talking to, 5 clients, and you're picking up 5 of the same either tactical responses or 5 of the same kind of results from one particular thing, okay, so that must be working. Like, how do we do more of that? How do we kind of cut out the noise of salespeople and cold calling? And how can you get more granular? Is it better to know a bunch of just a little bit of a lot of things, or is it better to know everything about one thing? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself in order to kind of propel yourself forward to that next level. Because I don't think any one person has the answer. I mean, I can tell you what has worked for us, but I also can say, marketing has been like, have the same message, have a target audience, speak to what be very specific. But the world doesn't say that. I mean, the other day, Mel Robbins put makeup on, and she is on Instagram. And I'm like, this is crazy. Mel Robbins is putting makeup on Instagram. Like, she's a motivational speaker. Like, she's turning into the Oprah for business world. And she's not just talking to her audience and doing that. I think that there's a lot to be said for being who you are, that authenticity, but being truly real, and not being fakey fake just to sell or provide a commodity. You have to figure out what resonates with not only your audience, but with you too, I feel like. And I'm not necessarily sure there's a right or a wrong. And if there is, I'm certainly not going to be the person to give that. I would give the advice of, if it feels right for you, try it. If it's wrong and you take a misstep, at least you did it, and at least you made your own choice, and at least you weren't kind of bullied into doing something that you weren't sure about doing. Taking a risk, it's not so much of a risk that you're going to ruin your whole existing book of business. I mean, you have to continue to get sales in, but figuring out little drips of new things that work comes from just trying it, or paying more attention, or upping your game. If you're really good at advertising, get really good at advertising and figure out what else you need to get good at, because Google is reducing that barrier to entry every second of every day. So what do you know that Google doesn't know? What do your clients need that Google can't provide with their algorithms? Just things like that. How do you take it to the next step and ask yourself harder and deeper questions? In my mind, that is what provides the sustainability. It's not something that I think it's a collection of what you read in the book and what you listen to on the podcast and what you see online and what your clients see. You kind of put them all together and you're like, okay, let's try this. That's how it works for me.
I feel like you said a couple things that really resonated with me there too. As an aside, I do feel like for you guys, what I'm assuming has worked well in terms of standing out has been that niche focus, because who's, a credit union going to pick the folks who've been in the business for 20 years and they specialize in this vertical, or the general SEO provider? But the theme of like sustainability, from what I've seen, especially with the agencies that have been in the game doing it successfully for more than just like the last, like 12 months, there's this focus on the, the authenticity. I think that's another key piece, but that authenticity on the front end, I feel like it attracts the right customer who aligns with your values, wants
100%.
the same things, wants to be a partner with you, and the growth comes from the retention and the sustainability from it. So I feel like for you guys, that has worked super well and it makes a lot of sense.
And that it has worked super well. And I will tell you that I'm classic business development. I'm classic sales. If it's bigger, if it's better, if it's a shiny, bright object, hand it to me and I will take it and run with it. Like I get jittery with stuff like that. That is just my jam. And I have been, you grow responsibly. You don't have one client that makes up 90% of your revenue. You have lots of clients that make up a considerable portion of your revenue. And you don't put all of your resources behind a select few. You divide your resources amongst your entire book. I think that it works. That goes for the sustainability of an agency. Again, that's something that you've seen time and time again, right? Say yes to everything. And if you've got that big one, that, big pie in the sky, and then you have to go out and hire 25 people just to service them. But then that big pie in the sky fires you. And now you're laying off the 25 people that you hired. That's just not a sustainable way to run your business. The sustainable way to run your business is to get a bunch of the same, see how it goes, and continue to either grow the accounts or get more accounts like it, but not go after that one big bright shiny object, because it's just not sustainable.
Right.
It's just not. And growing, that you grow responsibly with like dedicated numbers and dedicated budgets, that's what creates responsible growth over the long term, and not necessarily going from 0 to 150 seconds.
Right. So with all the change that's going on, what is the strategic focus for you guys over the next 12 months?
Well, that's an interesting thing to say. So we're going through planning right now. We haven't really come out with it. We follow a lot of principles for our leadership team in an effort to collectively decide where we're going to go over the next, not only year, but 3 years. We kind of have a long-term 10-year plan, and how we're going to get there and where we're going to decide. And so we have a leadership team that's comprised of, it's myself, the CEO, the director of accounts, the director of digital marketing, the director of operations, and the director of people operations. And Neil comes in as well. And we all, go on, are going to have this retreat meeting session where we're going to just dissect and dilute a bunch of things, from, our core values to our product offering to the products that we're want to do versus where we are, where we think that we're going to grow. And we are going to take that time and really collectively decide what that 3-year plan looks like from a very strategic planning driven, actionable way. And so I wish that I could answer that question with exactly what we're doing. But to be honest with you, I don't have the meeting until 2 weeks from now. So I don't know yet. But I do know that we are always going to continue to get stronger and get better and, kind of rise with the times. That's one thing. That's a continued pattern that we've taken since our inception.
And what do you think? Like, if, outside of the meeting, what are some of your thoughts on, like, here's how we rise with the times and stay with it?
Well, mine's very, my answer to this is very kind of, I think that if anyone looks at digital marketing the same way, they are dead in the water. I think that you need to be completely creative and think about marketing in a completely different way than you always have. And that is my best answer. How we're going to do that and how we're going to get there, I don't know particularly, but I do know that you cannot think about it the same way. If you're going into these planning session meetings or you're getting your leadership team together and you're thinking about strategic planning and growth options, you cannot think the same. It has to be completely different. I think that you need to think about what marketing is today is not going to be the same tomorrow. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? I'm not sure, but that's when you need to take a look at your existing clients and the work that you do for them and their results and who's happy and who's not and why and what your people think and what your people say. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And I think that I attribute all of my success to that, to surrounding myself with people who are way smarter than me. I just have the gut instinct. Everyone else kind of figures it out. But my gut instinct is that you cannot look at it the same. Yeah. It has to, it's just not going to be the same. Digital marketing is going to completely change.
Yeah. Well, this has been a super fun conversation for me. I really appreciate you joining. For those who want to continue the conversation with you or they want to learn more about what you guys do, where should they go?
Yeah, thanks for that little shout out. This has been so much fun. And I just said yes to this and didn't really know. I got in a little bit of trouble from my marketing people. They were like, "What? You're doing a podcast? You don't even know this?" And I was like, "No." I said, "I think it's new." So, but no, I'm so glad. This has been so much fun. And it's like totally exceeded all of my expectations. So thank you so much for that. And for finding me and asking me. I'm honored. But you can find me. So my email address is Kristen@WebStrategiesInc.com. So that's KRISTIN @WebStrategiesInc.com. My company name is WebStrategies Incorporated. We're out of Richmond, Virginia. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. And you can find my cell phone number, I think, on the website somewhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining. Bye.